I am in a fall mood right now. All I want to do is put on a flannel and paint fall landscapes. I'm really excited today to show you my tutorial for spooky trees, misty, foggy, spooky trees. Here are two paintings that I've done in this style. Let's take a look. So here's one spooky tree painting I did. This is a 5x7. I really love how the colors turned out and how it looks like there's so much mist in between the trees. It's kind of an overcast day. There's a little bit of blue in the sky, but mostly it's like a blustery day. I do a lot of really light trees in the background to build up those layers of fog. This is a bigger painting. This is 8x10. And this is a little more spooky looking. I really love the ground here, all the different variety of trees I add. So this is the style we're going for. Now, normally I paint 5x7. This is my preferred size, but I feel like mixing it up today. So this is a block of Arches watercolor paper, and it is an 8x8 inch block. Now, a block is different from your regular pad of watercolor paper because most of the sides of the paper are glued together. This black is the glue you can see, except for this inch or two of opening that helps us detach the top paper from the rest of the block. The wonderful thing about a block is that because it's all glued down together, it means that you do not have to tape it down. So while watercolor paper will naturally buckle a little bit, in this case, the glue helps prevent that. So you would be able to paint right to the edges if you wanted. Because my other two paintings have that little border edge, I think I am going to tape this down just to keep that look consistent, but it is only cosmetic. There is no function to the tape. My colors for today's painting are going to be Quinacridone Gold, Pyrrole Orange, a little bit of Ultramarine Blue, and our trusty Indigo. There's my little color swatch. Let's get this taped down and let's start painting. I'm dropping water onto my paper. I'm going to wet the entire paper and work wet and wet with my foggy land and sky and background. I'm starting with my Quinacridone Gold and Pyrrole Orange and swooping in some of where my land is going to go. I'm tipping my paper a lot to let the paint run down and blend, and I do that quite a bit. It helps get a misty look. I'm putting in just a little bit of ultramarine blue and then going in with my indigo to really get that overcast look. I'm doing swoops with my mop brush. I'm going over the orange a little bit. I know it's going to blend a little bit. I'm not scrubbing, but I'm going to let gravity help do the work for me. And the cool thing about tipping your pad of paper when there's a sky is that it will make it look like there is rain coming down from the clouds. And then as the water kind of beads up at the bottom of my paper, I'm taking a paper towel and soaking that excess liquid up. I'm doing smaller swoops to get a little cloud shape in there. I haven't really planned out how I want this to go, and I'm going to kind of let it be the magic of watercolor. I'm going even darker. I want darker paint. It's going to dry lighter. We know this with watercolor. I'm intentionally creating blooms now. A bloom is when you add water or watery paint to something that is less wet on the paper. And what it does is it pushes out the paint that it's coming into contact with and pushing those particles. That's not the word I'm looking for. Okay, it's pushing that out. You can see here this kind of whoosh of pushing that indigo out and creating what's called a bloom. Blooms are terrible when they're unintentional, and they are wonderful when they are intentional. Really cool texture. and it is magical. We can see how that has spread. You can kind of see these blooms pushing into the orange and the indigo. It's just wonderful. So now that that background has dried, we are going to go in with our trees. Now I'm going to make a really watery puddle of my indigo and ultramarine blue. And these are my background trees. I'm going in with a little number 2 round brush, and this light wash of the tree makes it look like it's in the background, surrounded by fog. And then at the bottom, I'm not even really attaching them down to land yet. I'm kind of scribbling out the bottom and using water to blend that down. And it's not a perfect blend into nothing, but we're going to layer and layer and layer. It's just adding to that foggy, misty effect. I'm loving how these blooms in the background are really giving the impression of fog and mist. All right, those were all my background trees. I'm going in with a slightly darker shade of indigo, kind of medium dark. And now I'm adding in kind of a middle ground tree. Again, I'm still not being too fancy with the bottom. I'm kind of using some water to blend it out. It's time to switch to my trusty number 8 round for the rest of these trees. Trees can be really hard to paint. Trees are ones I've gone through a lot of evolution in the past years with painting trees. So I start really small at the top. I kind of wiggle my brush, squiggle my brush. I keep using the phrase like a script. If you're writing in scribbly cursive, but instead of letters, you're just scribbling like a kid would do. Just scribble your brush and then decide, do you want your branches to tip up, then squiggle up a little bit? Do you want them to tip down? And then it's conical, so it's going to come out at the bottom and get wider at the base. I'm taking my brush and dabbing it off on my paper towel and then lifting paint off of parts of my trees. This lifting suggests that there is fog where these trees are, or there's mist by the ground. So I'm going to do this to a lot of my trees to get that spooky mood. You could do this with a piece of toilet paper or Kleenex or paper towel and do some lifting there. I'm using what's called a thirsty brush, which means my brush is not wet. It is a little damp, but I have blotted off the liquid on my paper towel, so it acts like a sponge. It's thirsty. It soaks up the liquid on the paper, and that's how I lift. Here I am drawing in a broken line to map out where I want this bigger tree to go. Sometimes I will do that and then the trunk will kind of peek through the branches. Oftentimes with my other trees, you saw I didn't even bother doing that. I kind of go back and forth with that technique. So dealer's choice. I'm lifting, you can see that technique there. You can see how the brush is acting like a sponge and soaking up that indigo and leaving that mist behind. Sometimes before I do my lifting, I will drop a little bit of clear water onto the area if it has already dried. And that way it'll reactivate the watercolor paint a little bit. And then I will use my thirsty brush to soak up the paint and the excess water. That's what I did in that last tree. On this big tree, I want to show you how not only am I putting in the trunk, that broken up line, but I'm also laying in some wonky branches going every which angle. I don't always use this for my trees, but this is another technique you could do where you kind of flick your brush and create these little branch lines that you then add your scribbles of foliage to. Try out various techniques with trees. See what you like. Do you like it to be more detailed and more precise, or do you like the gestural nature of watercolor? And every answer is the correct answer, which is good news. I'm using my bigger mop brush as my thirsty brush to pick up that paint and add in some of that fog. This is looking really foggy and misty. Here I've got kind of a swoopy, droopy tree. I like mixing up the branch styles in a painting where I have multiple trees. I like when they kind of hang down and droop. The droopy ones give so much character. And they don't all need to be the same density either. Maybe you have a tree that has just a couple of little Charlie Brown branches. It gives personality, it gives mood, it celebrates the variation of trees. It's just fun. Now I'm using my darkest indigo to add in just some gestures of foliage at the bottom of this painting. I'm flicking my brush up, kind of grasses, bushes, brambles, branches, not being super precise, but it's getting at the vibe. I'm adding some of that orange color to my foliage area as well. Here I'm just wetting that area, putting in a little misty wash of light indigo. The star of the show here is the trees and the fog. I don't want the eye to be drawn down to the bottom of the painting. I want the eye to be drawn to that overcast sky and kind of zigzag down into this forest. And looking up at the sky to the right of the middle, it almost looks like there's a little moon peeking out from behind the clouds. So I think I'll add a little bit of white gouache or gel pen and see if we can get a little moon in there. That would be cool. I'm using the tip of my brush to add in either some dead trees or branches, trees without any leaves on them. It makes me think of the original Snow White movie when she's running through the woods. I haven't seen that movie in forever, but when she's running through the forest and her cloak is getting caught on the tree branches and stuff, and it could have been this forest. We don't know. A couple more trees for good measure. We're going to add in a little bit of dark shadows to some of these trees, add in a little moon, add in some birds, and look at our final piece. I'm adding some indigo to define some shadows on these trees. The cool thing about adding this indigo onto these layers is it also increases the contrast between the tree and the fog. So I don't need to lift anymore. I don't need to remove anything. But by adding a darker color near the areas that we lifted, it makes it look even foggier and even mistier. Okay, I'm going in with gouache to make this little moon. That was a happy surprise. I didn't intend to be able to put in a moon. I'm just having the bottom little part of this moon peeking out from behind the clouds. All right, bird time. Super dark indigo or any other dark color or even a pen. It doesn't matter. I'm doing V's and inverted V's. I'm trying to vary up the angle of my V's so they all look like they are flapping their wings in different positions. And I love it. I love that crisp border. Again, the tape was not necessary because this is on a block. So I take my knife, stick it into that little section that's not glued down, and run it parallel to the painting along all the sides. And voila! A spooky, moody, foggy, misty forest just in time for fall. Thanks for watching, everybody.